What's the best example of fuck you money you've seen? I used to work with companies that build super yachts. It happened several times that the interior of a vessel has been finished in 500k plus worth of marble. After which the owner walks in, decides he doesn't like the color in hindsight and requests it all to be removed again. Billionaire Howard Hughes reserved the top 2 floors of the Desert Inn in Las Vegas for 10 days. When his 10 days were up, the hotel asked him to check out. He wasn't ready to leave, so he bought the hotel and stayed there for 4 years. I'm an employment and contract attorney. In my younger days I was corp counsel for large hospital. We were in the midst of a fundraising campaign and were a few million from our goal. Got a call from a wealthy, youngish guy, offered to cover the remainder plus 10% with 2 stipulations. He used to work at the hospital when he was younger and made it rich with a medical device company he started. So he wanted a voting member board seat, and he wanted to fire this vice president who was his supervisor when he worked there and had made his life miserable. Was the reason he quit and needed up business for himself. Took it to the board and CEO. They agreed to board seat. I couldn't advise they allow the firing for liability. However, the CEO decided to reorganize certain departments, and coincidentally this VP's position was eliminated. The new board member chaired the committee that made the call on the reorganization and informed the VP of the changes. That was the biggest fuck you long-term grudge I ever saw. The CEO of my company is actually a super solid guy. He hates one of our competitors so much he bought a billboard right outside the competitor's office and kept our ad up until they changed locations. My uncle bought a 900k small shop back in 2012. Cash. Just so it wasn't torn down because he liked to go there as a kid. Literally just an abandoned small store in downtown Evansville. Not a case of genuine fuck you money, but a lesser situation that sticks out in my mind. So, this happened to a close friend quite some time ago. He and his wife were looking for a decent home in a particular area. Something to grow into and raise a family. Didn't ever find what they were looking for. So they bought a nice-sized parcel of rural land after doing a fucking shit ton of homework and built a home on it. They were self-made, they paid cash for it all. Owned it lock, stock and barrel. They built it up over the years. So it wasn't all at once. They also were a bit eclectic and liked to work on different art projects. Eventually had a couple of workshop garages. Liked to paint the place different contrasting colors. Had a garden out front, etc. Not ugly, but it wouldn't be considered normal. It was pretty out of the way at the time. So no real big deal. Practically no neighbors. Very minimal zoning permit laws. That's one of the reasons they chose that land plot in the first place. Fast forward 25 odd some years. The entire area is becoming developed. Their kids are grown up and moved out. A massive housing development now circles their property. Like a big ol' lopsided U-shape, nearly surrounding it, and they started to get harassed by the development owners, as well as their WA representatives plus lawyers. They said shit like, "You're dragging down the value of our development, not our problem if you made a bad investment. Notices are delivered which state your property doesn't conform to WA guidelines, we're not part of your WA. Please leave us alone. We'll buy your place out. No. We're not selling." They were half considering it since the kids left. But now they just want to stay on principle. They kept dialing up their legally entitled shenanigans. "You need to join the WA, no. Fuck you and suck a pineapple. Bother us again and we'll call the cops on you." They get approached by the WA lawyers via official looking letters, saying essentially, greater than in this jurisdiction, we can compel your bank who holds mortgage to the property to force you to join the WA and abide by their guidelines. It's the same laws that compel homeowners to carry homeowners insurance for the duration of the mortgage. Earlier I said, state. But I'm unsure if it really is a statewide thing as it was told to me. So I'm going with a more neutral and ambiguous jurisdiction. And they did their research. And apparently, in many places, you might have bought the property without an HOA. But they can compel you to join one if ever offered. Since HOAs increase property prices, and that protects the bank's investment. My friend is like, lol. Go ahead. Compel away. Bitches. Remember. They bought the place in cash all those years ago. Zero mortgage. The development and WA couldn't do a damn thing. Best use of fuck you money I've seen. Last I spoke with them, they were hiring a lawyer to ensure that if the property changes hands, no WA exclusion is put into the deed. That way, their kids can inherit it or sell it without any WA nonsense. I worked at a high-end eco-resort some time ago. We spent weeks preparing for some guests who'd booked up half the resort for him and his family. Doing a bunch of renovations and changes in the cabins and rooms because the guy was very picky. But he was spending a lot. So whatever. We even rebuilt the motor on another boat and outfitted it for down rigging because they needed 3 fishing boats. The guy shows up for his reservation. And first thing he does is start cussing out and belittling the girl at the front desk. The owner walked in to see what his problem was and the guy proceeded to shit on the front desk girl to him. So the owner just said, "I'm terribly sorry you feel that way. We will give you a full return on your deposit so you can find somewhere better to stay." The guy's face goes white. And he starts apologizing and pleading with him. But the owner didn't care. The guy had to go out to the parking lot and explain to his entire family how his garbage temper fucked up their 1-week vacation and they'd have to find somewhere else to stay. The owner couldn't give a fuck how much extra money he had spent. He wasn't taking that shit. And more importantly, he wasn't going to make the staff take that shift. He wasn't my favorite boss. But that is something I respect. Ferruccio Lamborghini. Back in the days he go-trich building tractors. And he bought himself a Ferrari. Because he's Italian. And it was the thing to do when Yo became successful. Unfortunately, sports car clutches back then were crap. And failed often. He went to Ferrari himself and said he could fix the problem. And was told to go back to his tractors because he knew nothing about high-performance cars. The wiki says he made cars to compete with Ferrari and the others. But in reality, he did it to spite Ferrari. Starting a car factory to spite someone. Epic level of fuck you. What was the biggest boost you've ever received to your sexual confidence? After I got done going down on a woman, she said, "That was so good, I might cry." I was on a first or second date. We hadn't slept together yet. And ran into one of my short-term exes from a few years ago. My ex went on to proclaim how wonderful it was sleeping with me and how she compared all her future BFS to me. I was super red-faced and embarrassed. But it was a huge confidence boost. Went on to marry the girl I was on a date with. And we still joke about it 16 years later. The biggest confidence boost I've had was when my BF at the time looked at me during a conversation and said in pure disbelief, "You really don't know how hot you are." Took me by surprise and instantly made me horny. As a teen, I was dropping a girl off at her house after we had just fooled around for the first time. She got out of my car and crossed in front through the headlights and into her house. This normally subdued girl was grinning ear to ear the whole way. My now wife had 3 orgasms and was about to have a 4th. Then yelled, "This is getting ridiculous." Had my thumbs stretching out my suspenders after that lol. A woman of 36 told me as we finished fucking, "Oh my god. That's how I've always wanted to be fucked." Looking back and realizing all the signs I missed. Feel great about my looks. feel not so great about my brains. This girl I met lived in the same apartment block provided by my company in France. She was short and cute, and we kinda hit things off and went out to drink with a couple of friends. We were both super drunk when we made it back and a lot horny since we were flirting the whole time. She came over to my place and we started making out. We then undressed and started cuddling, and she held my tool in her small hands and said, "This is so big." To be honest, I'm just an average size guy. That just boosted my confidence a lot. What's something you only understand if you have lived it? One thing that's hard to truly understand unless you've lived it is the experience of deep grief. Whether it's losing a loved one, going through a major life change, or dealing with any kind of profound loss, the emotions that come with it can be incredibly complex and overwhelming. Having a child die, poverty, being in a war zone in any capacity, the mindfuckery of addiction, chronic pain. You've experienced pain before, so you think you get it, but nothing prepares you for when pain becomes your new baseline normal. Frozen in time grief and grieving someone who is still alive. Chronic illness and disability. Single people, why are you single? I don't know how to meet people anymore. Too introverted to approach someone, not good looking enough to be approached by someone. I'm single by choice, just not my choice. I'm not really actively trying anymore. Years of rejections doesn't do wonders for the self-confidence. But I am comfortable being alone. I'm not super bothered by it. It's how it's always been for me. Being single is so peaceful. I spend all my time arguing with the internet. I'm a woman in my 70s. I've been married twice. First marriage was awful, and I stayed single for 20 years, but my second husband was a wonderful man. I lost him 2 years ago to cancer. The cat and I are doing very well together. I'm not interested in marrying again, because in my generation the men expect to be waited on and cleaned up after and catered to. Even the really good ones, like my Lou, but they will do yard work. My house is clean. There are no wet towels on the floor. There are no dirty dishes scattered around the house. The dirty clothes are in the hamper. Anything I put down is where I left it unless the cat pushes it to the floor. And I eat when I'm hungry instead of on a set schedule. And I have a lawn tractor for my acre of land. I have lots of women friends and many are widows. We have a lot of fun together. Single works really well for me. Cats are easier and a lot less work than men, because I don't leave my house, I guess.